white supremacists do when they get information, African information, they sort of always distort it. Well, we all know that the the Egyptians were black people. But according to Elizabeth Taylor, she was Cleopatra in our minds, in our day. But tell us a little bit about this Hidden Colors 4, which I found amazing. I watched it last night with me and my wife, and we were just, and I had Brother Kaba coming on today, and I was just so excited to talk about this. I mean, I've heard a couple of things here about Jamaica that I never knew. I thought I knew quite a bit about Jamaica, but let's clue us in about this mulatto, the boulets that exist today.
Well, I haven't changed since the last time I was here.
Well, that's why I brought this up.
And Dr. Francis Cress Welsing had a mentor, Neely Fuller, and he always said if you didn't understand racism, white supremacy, everything else you thought you knew would be a confusion. My approach adding to that is if you do not have a systems analysis, all of this information and knowledge that you're putting together is not going to allow you to deal with it the way you should and produce your own system capability. So it's not just a question of racial mixing or Jamaica being one of the centers of the process of buck breaking. I mean, that happened throughout the system. That was a part of the system. So no need to single out Jamaica. Jamaica just happened to be one of the largest of the enterprises of enslavement because it was a larger island. St. Croix, St. Kitts, and the other islands are...
Well, I had never heard of the men being raped by the slave owner. I'd never heard the men being raped by slave owners.
Well, that's one of the reasons why we have to have a systems analysis. The European system, going back to their most significant moments in history, have men raping men. Greek culture is centered on a mentor and a mentee. That's not just an intellectual or spiritual relationship, that's a sexual relationship. Greek warriors had a process of being developed into their manhood with a relationship with men. So that if you understand European culture and you understand it's coming out of the foundation of cave culture, where they put a premium on the physical strength of the male child. Because one female child could produce several children. The male child was prized. So they had infanticide, killing of certain children that could not become this prototype of the warrior. And certainly killing the female children because you only needed one or two to produce. So it's a deep cultural process that's systemic in their cultures, right up through the Roman Catholic Church, where you have to, they're acting like they're surprised about predator relationships in the Roman Catholic. Well, you put men together for centuries and you house them together. What are they going to do? Look for squirrels to play with? So we have to have a systems analysis, and then these things won't surprise us. You know. So, but the devastation of the enslavement process was to dehumanize. So it's a psychological and a physical. The wonder of it all is that we survived it. Native American populations were devastated. African populations had the resilience to resist it and to begin to put, now we have the potential of putting our system in place. And that's why the educators and those touching into this knowledge are so important. I just finished reading a book. I couldn't put it down. Ebony and Ivy. The relationship of the education, the best education, the Yale, the Princeton, the Rutgers, the Columbia, the Georgetown. The slave process was woven into these great institutions. And that should be our pursuit of this knowledge, should be what we should be all about, because we've survived it. And with the exposure of information about the Nile, I brought the Tekken. This is another one. The same brothers producing Hidden Colors and whatnot have produced the Tekken, the symbol that in this nation, your president, Trump, the chump, is telling people to pay attention to
put them on me.
I've laid them right at your feet. Boom.
No.
And so
you haven't heard the names I've been calling them.
when I see you toss them out, and I say, okay, good, my brother is incorrect. But worshiping European anthems, European flags, European systems, in Washington, D.C., as Brother Kaba and others have known, that this tradition that we call the Nile Valley tradition, Kemet, has been institutionalized. Greeks did it to give themselves a place in history, and then they were followed by the Romans who did it. And then the Anglo-Saxons eventually, and the Catholics did it, so that you have this symbol of the male penis. That's a sacred symbol for all of these secret societies, all of these religious traditions. In the middle of the Vatican, you have this circular Vatican courtyard, and in the middle is one of the most significant male penises coming directly out of the Nile Valley. And on the top of it, they have a cross. In the formation of your nation's capital, meaning Washington, D.C., I've moved myself out of this country psychologically, so I deal with the world globally. So, but your capital in Washington, the most important symbol and building there is the so-called Washington Monument, which is built at a certain height. I believe it's 555 feet, but it represents a deep African understanding of the relationship between the male and the female and the material and the spiritual. But they just taken it for its physical size, but they also want to take the traditions behind it, and they have reworked them in their perverted ways of believing in relationships between male and female, between male and male, between the spiritual and the... And so we have to redo all of this. I think this guy, Kelly, who we thought was going to try to temper the so-called president, he revealed himself too. He's been processed by the same white supremacy system. And so our understanding of it means that we know that we cannot use this system but anything more than surviving. If we really want to go where we need to go, we have to go through the survival process, transform into a culture of development where we control the economics, politics, and culture of our world. Let's concentrate on that point.
How do we come out of this? What are solutions of understanding this buck busting and the forming of mulattoes, so being breed, so we don't have this Willie Lynch syndrome amongst us, light against dark, like I'm in control because I'm light-skinned, or I get favors because I'm light-skinned, or other dark-skinned blacks thinking I only got ahead because I was light-skinned. I've had that. But I just was smarter than everybody else, as far as I was concerned.
But that's the system of that's what we're trying to deal with. And
that's what we have to deal with that.
Well, we have to get out of that system, as Dr. Jeffries says, and create our own.
Okay.
Because we only act like that when we're in their system.
Right.
And so we have got to create a system where we understand, because we don't act like this towards each other.
Can we take this system and just reform it to our ways?
I think this system is in very serious trouble. As it to me, as it relates to a system is a system.
Okay.
But it's the spirit that guides it.
Okay.
This is a very toxic, poisonous system.
Right.
Dr. Edwin Nichols talks about the axiology of the human family.
Right.
And he talks about,
brother.
Yeah, a phenomenal, and he got a lot of stuff up on YouTube. I encourage people to Google his name, Edwin Nichols, Nichols. He talks about the relationship that Asians had, because of the nature of them being where they were geographically. Everybody had to depend on the group.
Okay.
And so they have an individual to group mentality. They relate to the group. The group is what's important to them.
Okay.
African people have a person-to-person relationship. That's very important to us, to be able to interact with each other, because when we interact with each other, our relationship creates the community upon which. So we are more into a person-to-person relationship. The European mentality is the person-to-material wealth, going back to the Ice Age mentality, where you are going to depend on your material wealth because that's what's going to help you survive.
Right.
So what we have to do is something that Dr. Edwin Nichols says, which I think is very important, because many of us go to work and we work with peoples of European descent, and we sit and we laugh, we joke, we talk about our families and all so wonderful. Now, at 5 o'clock or even at lunch, you can go out and that same person that you had a wonderful conversation with will pass you on the street and not say a word to you. And that is because they basically objectify you. Mm-hmm. You're an object to them. And so therefore there's no personal relationship. And then we get very offended. We say, wow, we was getting along and everything, and now all of a sudden they don't talk to me or whatever. But we shouldn't take offense to that. What we ought to do is do to them what they do to us. Objectify them. Mm-hmm. Because quite frankly, if I pass you, you don't speak to me, I don't care. I didn't really want to talk to you either. If you want to talk to me, then that's another thing. But as it relates to those who objectify you, you have to objectify them and don't take it personal. Right. They don't see you as a living entity. They see you as an object. They interact with you as an object. That's their system. Mm-hmm. When we see the Asian community, they don't hire outside of their own community. Right. They respond to the group. We're the only ones that try to hire everybody because we have a person-to-person relationship.
Isn't that our spiritual energy?
Well, that's the important point, that our person-to-person relationship deals significantly with the spiritual component, just as the